He was a man who transformed his suffering, seclusion, and convulsions into a chilly, hypnotic sound that the globe couldn't turn away from. He had one of the most peculiar voices to come out of post-war Britain. Be that as it may, Ian Curtis was more than just the lead singer of the cult band Joy Division. He also penned Love Will Tear Us Apart and died at the young age of 23. If that's the case, you're not listening to a tale that surpasses his musical compositions in terms of beauty and tragedy. From a life spent as a board office clerk to a depressed teen who almost died from prescription pills at 16, from a husband who wed at 19, from a father who had an affair before he knew what love was, and finally from an artist whose epilepsy made him dance as if torn apart by his own music, he has been through it all. This is the tale of Ian Curtis, a legend in the post-punk scene and the voice of a generation that was afraid to speak up, a tale that has never been told in its entirety until now. Background: Ian Kevin Curtis came into this world in Stretford, Greater Manchester, on July 15, 1956. A post-industrial neighborhood characterized by smoky streets, brick houses, and an ever-gray sky. A little, inconspicuous town where everything was assumed to be normal, steady, and silent. Macclesfield was the place his family relocated to when he was just a few years old. As a working-class family in post-war Britain, the Curtis were no exception. Aerospace engineer Kevin Curtis was his father. Realistic, icy, and down to the slightest detail. Doreen, his mother, was a clerk by trade. She was neat, shy, and rarely spoke up. In such a setting, feelings, particularly those of youngsters, were frequently viewed as nebulous or problematic. Ian stood out from the crowd, even as a young child. He was uninterested in sports, found humor offensive, and never made any new friends. But he preferred to spend his time alone with a good book, particularly one of poetry or a classic work of literature. Adoring Wordsworth, he devoured the poet's poems about solitude, mortality, and self-discovery. He spent more and more time thinking about the meaninglessness of existence and existential philosophy as he got older. By the time he was 14 or 15 years old, Ian frequently broached the topic of death with an academic air, according to his friends. Absolutely harmless. After that, the first milestone of darkness occurred at the age of 16. Ian ended up in the hospital after taking too many of the prescription pain relievers and anxiety medicines. In order to preserve his life, doctors pumped his stomach. Although his loved ones insisted it was an accident, anyone who knew Ian well knew better. They were aware it was the initial slip, a test of his endurance, a measure of how much interest there was in his existence. He remained unchanged after surviving that moment. Ian became increasingly more reclusive, reflective, and emotionally distant. School turned into a mental shackle. Ian was an outsider who couldn't hide his